Jordan Sekulow is from the American Center of Law and Justice. He is the executive director. And would you give a good Lancaster welcome to Jordan Sekulow?
Good morning.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. And I'm really excited of the things I think you're going to be to add to our conversation today. And I think you get the feel today is we're here to inform, we're here to encourage, we're here to understand. All of this comes around a principle that we need to know, but again, I don't think we as the citizen need to know, and that is the whole issue of rule of law and what the rule of law. We're a nation of laws.
Right.
How has that been contorted in recent years?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects. I know it can sound a little bit dark, right? Rule of law. In the past couple of decades, this is sometimes used by authoritarian governments to hold their citizens to account and say, this is the law, we're just following the law. And that's what they'll do before international bodies. And we see that in the Islamic world. This is the law. It's not up to my interpretation. But in our country, though we got to kind of get used to this terminology, you have to understand that, first of all, it started in the church. And I know you did the sermons on this, but for people, maybe you weren't here, and it's a good reminder, because I think we need to constantly remember, is that this movement, that it's in Latin, lex rex, that the law is the king.
Yes.
The king is not the law. This was radical in Europe when it was first put forward by Samuel Rutherford. I mean, worthy of being put to death because of ideas that the king doesn't just get to decide
the law is king.
Right.
The law is king.
And that's an important principle, and that's what governs, when he talks about why is our Constitution so important, all of those, even the parts that are not as interesting maybe, not the Bill of Rights, go to just the structure of government. Why is it so important to protect that structure? Because it's the law that is king, and that's what makes us equal before the law. And on the Supreme Court it says equal justice under law. That's the guiding principle. We don't always get it perfectly right. Our government has not always gotten it right. It took a long, the civil rights movement is the perfect example of that. It took time, and you always have to work on it. But it's a good goal. I mean, it's a great goal to have, and it's fair.
Just. What questions do we ask? Leaving out, we got two platforms that we have to look at and compare and contrast. What questions do you ask? Because you've served on a number of presidential campaigns, so you had to deal with the candidate and probably ask the question, what are people asking about us? Yeah,
and so I think when you have the two, especially in a presidential election, in your state elections, I want to say this for those who are here, it's important to get to know the candidates, because the national party platforms oftentimes conflict with what one of your local representatives, state officials, city, county may believe. So get to know them. Not enough people do. And you can have a lot of influence. Sometimes, there's the general electorate, especially in presidential elections, has kind of this overriding influence, and people do get picked on partisan levels because the turnout's higher. But then you get elections 2 years later, no one's voting. There's so much lower turnout that if you do go vote, but get to know your officials, you could see the basic policy issues, right? The difference between Republican, Democrat, even Green Party and Libertarian Party. You'll see the basics. So I think you have to ask questions about how does this go, with my worldview, what I care about.
Is there hope for America?
There is hope. And you could imagine in kind of my position, and I think that this is for all of us. We see, first of all, turbulent times. And we live it now minute to minute because of the way the media also works. It's not, we don't get the news the next day. We get it that minute. We saw it last night. And we didn't just wake up to the news. We went to bed with the news about, it comes on the alert on your phone about a bomb goes off in New York or explosion. And then there's a second device found. There's a stabbing attack in Minnesota, and there's New Jersey. And it could be overwhelming. As Christians, this is a message for those government officials that are here today and those who are running for office that come from our background will understand. But for all of us, because we kept talking today about getting empowered and being involved, making sure we vote. Why do we vote? Why do we do it? What's important about the rule of law, Constitution? We still have to have room for the supernatural.
Yes.
For our faith. And ultimately realize we do have this duty to keep working on all these issues, right? I mean, I think especially as American Christians, because we've been given this unbelievable opportunity to choose our leaders, have direct representation at all these different levels of government. So we have this duty, certainly, no question. But without spiritual intervention, without the supernatural, you could kind of give up, right? That things have gotten so out of control that, Pastor, if I vote, if I elect these officials, our country can't do it alone. That's true. We can't just do it as one nation. We can't afford it as one group. Our values, our issues, they're all under attack. But there is that spiritual, we can't close that door. Even though we're getting very involved and we want to get involved, we don't ever close the door to the supernatural from the Holy Spirit and from what we believe that our faith can do outside of the institutions of man.